And hello everybody and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host Christian. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today. We have quite a podcast for you guys this week. We don't have a tremendous amount of news. A lot of it just it's all like compacted into like one and it just feels very dense. So I don't know. That's just how it happens sometimes, guys. That's just how it happens. So we're going to talk, of course, about the movie news. If you never listened to the show before, which maybe a lot of you, because I don't have that many viewers. I don't care about the listening count. I do it because I like doing the podcast. But it would be nice to have a few more viewers, listeners. But anyway, if you listened to the show before, of course, we'll talk about all the movie news that has come out this week, which we'll do. We'll also talk about the movies that are coming out in theaters. And we'll talk about the trailers that were dropped this week. As always, as we do on the podcast, we always talk about the news items that came out after the podcast went up, or any other news items that came out over the weekend. And this is actually a continuation of, well, not necessarily a continuation, more of a confirmation and an update on a news item we talked about last week on the podcast. Last week we mentioned that Carrie Fisher would potentially appear in Star Wars Episode 9, because her brother Todd Fisher at the time came out and said, in an interview, and said that they gave Lucasfilm and Disney permission to use Carrie Fisher's likeness to, continue her character on for Star Wars Episode 9. However, that would not be the case, because last week when we were doing the podcast, Star Wars Celebration was going on, and during Star Wars Celebration, Lucasfilm head Kathleen Kennedy came out and said that that would not be the case. Kennedy said, sadly, Carrie will not be in 9, but we see a lot of Carrie in 8. Referring to, of course, Star Wars The Last Jedi. Now, at the time, I hope I mentioned this, that Todd Fisher doesn't necessarily speak for Lucasfilm or Disney. He really just said that we gave them permission to use Carrie if they wanted to. And that was kind of, that's kind of what everyone was kind of missing, I think, a little bit. I think even I kind of missed it when I read it at the same time. But this is up to Lucasfilm and Disney at the end. If they don't want to use Carrie Fisher or Leia, General Leia, and at this point for Star Wars Episode 9, they don't have to. And if her character arc is finished in Star Wars Episode 8, if they found a way to finish her arc in Star Wars Episode, or Star Wars The Last Jedi, I should say, then that should be fine. And of course we'll find out later this year, because Star Wars The Last Jedi comes out in December, so we'll find out what's going on with that. Alright, so let's move on to the next bit of news. It was trailers. Not a lot of trailers came out this week. Not a lot of big ones anyway. There were some small trailers here and there, but of course we focus on the bigger trailers. The first trailer that came out this week was Dylan O'Brien's lead action thriller American Assassin. This is based off a novel, a series of novels. It's based off a character. I forgot. I didn't put down the writer's name. I had the writer's name, but I didn't. For whatever reason, I don't have it in front of me. But it's Dylan O'Brien who is the lead in the Maze Runner films. He's playing a character who joins a kind of a Black Ops CIA kind of off the books kind of team after his wife is murdered, or his fiancée is murdered when they're on vacation, and he goes in and he tries to get revenge, and that's kind of the revolving plot. And then he kind of figures out that there's a bigger scheme at play, and he has to, of course, take care of that as well. The trailer looks pretty cool. I mean, it really shows off that Dylan O'Brien is a badass in a lot of ways. His character it looks like he's there's a part of the movie where he's like shooting. He's at a shooting range and he kind of just takes over and starts shooting all different kind of targets, or everyone else's targets, and that's pretty cool. Michael Keaton is also in the film. He looks like he's playing doesn't look like he's playing. He is playing the leader of this little group, and it looks like he gets his hands dirty in this film. So he won't just kind of be a mentor role. He will be, right there with Dylan O'Brien chasing people down. Taylor Kitsch is also in the film, and you don't really see Taylor Kitsch in the trailer till the very end, and reading the synopsis, it looks like he will play a bigger role overall role in the film. So we'll have to see about that. American Assassin looks really good. I mean, I'm not gonna. I wasn't really too excited about the film. I knew the film was being made, and then the trailer dropped. The trailer dropped, and it looks pretty good. Not gonna lie, it looks pretty good. So the next trailer that came out was a teaser for Kingsman: The Golden Circle. And I really use teaser in a lot of sense because it's literally like 20 seconds long, and it's all just sped up, and it's all it is. You gotta like watch it multiple times to see if you can catch stuff. Of course, thankfully, a lot of fans out there kind of slowed down the trailer and picked it apart frame by frame. So there is a more slowed down version of the trailer if you want to go watch it online. I will find a good one and put it down below, of course, in the description / show notes area, where you can also check out the link to the actual teaser itself, along with the link to American Assassin. I'm really excited for Kingsman: The Golden Circle. I think this little, as much as it probably kind of pissed off a lot of fans that it wasn't a proper teaser, I think considering what the movie is and considering probably what this movie will be, I think it kind of makes sense, and it's a very cool kind of viral marketing campaign they're doing. If this was the first film, that probably would piss a lot of people off, but now we know kind of what world we're playing in. I think it kind of makes a little sense, and it's kind of cool. It is kind of cool. But yeah, teasers there. Slow down teasers there if you want to go check that out as well. It's there's some very interesting shots. It's a lot of shots. We don't get too many action shots. It's a lot of showing off the new characters as well. We see someone with a robotic arm, so it looks like they're keeping the trope of someone not having a limb. So we'll see how that works out. So there you go. Those are the teasers and trailers for this week. I was kind of hoping that they would drop an actual trailer after that teaser came out, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Obviously, if it does happen, you can go. It will be down there in the description / show notes area, or it will be up on the Facebook page, or probably all over Twitter and Facebook. So you guys go check that out. So while you're down there, you might as well go like my Facebook page at facebook.com/moviepit, where I, of course, give you guys all the breaking news items. Also give you guys the trailers, and yeah, go give me a like over there. I really appreciate it. Also, while you're down there, you can go check out my WordPress account, which is movieswithchris.wordpress.com, where I do written reviews. The last written review I have up there is for The Fate of the Furious, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, and you'll have a review of Free Fire coming out. We'll talk about Free Fire, of course, in this week's releases segment of the podcast. Alright, so let's get to this week's news items. Just very quick little tidbits. Blind Al will return for Deadpool 2. So there is that. And Spider-Man will be in Avengers 4, although we don't know how big his role will be. Just quick little tidbits on that. Give you guys, I say quick little tidbits because I'm pretty sure we all kind of knew Spider-Man was probably going to appear in Avengers 4. Blind Al coming back for Deadpool 2 should be interesting considering we don't know how that's going to turn out. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so let's move on to the next news item. And all of this, it's all kind of almost all connected in its own little way. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 obviously will come out in a couple weeks, or a few weeks, and we're all excited for it. The movie just had its premiere in Hollywood, so there's a lot of news coming out from that. One of the big ones, the first news item that came out pretty much for Guardians of the Galaxy, is that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 will have 5 post-credit scenes. Not 1 or 2, 5. It will have 5 post-credit scenes. And of course, Marvel's no stranger to post-credit scenes. They do them all the time, but this is new. 5 post, so it will probably be playing all throughout the credits. It should be interesting. And so far, the reaction for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was mostly positive. So that's good signs for all the fans. After that was released, it felt like every other day there was a Guardians of the Galaxy related topic that came out. So James Gunn will return to write and direct Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That was confirmed. He confirmed that on his Facebook account. He released a statement saying this. I needed to know it was in my heart what I truly felt called to do. There is a history in Hollywood of haphazard endings to trilogies, and I didn't want to become part of this dishonorable tradition of pretending the third one doesn't exist. I couldn't do it for the money. I couldn't do it because it was what other people wanted me to do. I needed to do it because it was what I needed to do. I have never made decisions in my career based on anything other than passion and love for the stories and characters, and I didn't want to start now. He told fans that he will, again, like I just mentioned, return to write and direct the film, saying, going a little bit deeper in his comments, saying, in the end, my love for Rocket, Groot, Gamora, Star-Lord, Yondu, Mantis, Drax, and Nebula, and some of the other forthcoming heroes goes deeper than you guys can possibly imagine, and I feel they have many adventures to go on and things to learn about themselves and the wonderful and sometimes terrifying universe we all inhabit, and like in both Volume 1 and Volume 2, we will work on creating the story that goes beyond what you expect. Gunn then briefly teased what Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 could bring to the MCU, saying that it will, quote, conclude the story of this iteration of the Guardians of the Galaxy and help catapult both old and new Marvel characters into the next 10 years and beyond. I will be working side by side with Kevin Feige and the gang to help design where the stories go and make sure the future of the Marvel's cosmic universe is as special and authentic and magical as you have created so far, as we have created so far. I promise you, the fans, I will do it with all integrity and love and respect for the characters. So, there you go. And this is kind of interesting because, well, one, it's awesome. It's just great. James Gunn has done so much for Marvel with Guardians of the Galaxy. It became this instant hit, and everyone's stupid excited for Volume 2, and now I'm pretty sure we're all pretty much stupid excited for Volume 3. Now, Gunn returning is huge just because he handled the characters pretty well, and from the early reactions and responses to Volume 2, it looks like he handles them even better this time around, and he seems kind of really like a perfect match for these kind of characters. He does mention, and this is kind of interesting because this has been going on from some of the other news items. He mentions the Marvel Cosmic Universe, which is different from the Marvel, the other characters, like the ground Earth characters, like Captain America and Iron Man and everyone else. So this is that's interesting that he's doing that, and that's kind of a word he's been throwing around with all these interviews lately. So yeah, this is really cool. I dig it. I hope that he comes back and he knocks it out of the park for Volume 3. So yeah. So continuing on with, again, it all kind of came together. It's all bulked together. Continuing on with Guardians Volume 2, there was a character that was supposed to appear that didn't appear, and that was a character that was teased in the first film, Adam Warlock. So he was originally going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but Gunn came out and said that in the early stages of development for the script, he was in the film. He was going to be a major supporting character, but they ended up taking Adam Warlock out because it was one character too many. And he said that luckily it was during the initial production phase, or before the initial production phase, so it didn't change or alter the script too much by the time they were filming. He does so. There was that. I mean, this was a character again that was teased in the first film, the cocoon, the big cocoon you see in the collector's collection, I guess, for the lack of a better word. That was supposed to be Adam Warlock. That was Adam Warlock's cocoon that all the fans went crazy for, and they knew that was him. So, and for those of you guys that don't know who Adam Warlock is, he's a fan favorite character, and one that actually James Gunn is a huge fan of. And he's had run-ins, and he has a history with the Avengers, and of course the Guardians of the Galaxy. And the way his original and initial incarnation was that he was a artificial human created by scientists who ends up escaping and he goes into space and he gets all these great powers, and he just meets all these characters, and he has a very rich history in the comics to this day. And he has a massive fan following, and people have been wanting him to appear in Guardians of the Galaxy since the first film. So, and a lot of people assume that Alan Warlock was going to appear in this one. That is not the case. But the teasers are probably still there. He does have a connection with one of the characters that is going to be in Volume 2, played by Elizabeth Debicki, the woman all in gold that we see in the trailers. She is supposed to be Aisha or Aisha. I always mispronounce her character's name. Ayesha. Let's put it that way. But she has a connection with Adam Warlock in the comics. Although we don't know if she'll have the same history. I didn't read if they had the same history from the early responses, because I want to go in blind. I don't want to know anything. But they have a history in the comics, so we don't know if maybe that's kind of a way in that Adam Warlock could come in. We don't know. But Adam Warlock will appear in a future films, and a lot of people are saying that it is going to be Volume 3, which makes sense considering that James Gunn has planted the seeds for Adam Warlock. So we'll see. We'll see. That's all the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, 3 news that we have, but we will be sticking with Marvel since we're on a roll here. Marvel has found directors. Yes, you heard me, directors for Captain Marvel. One of Marvel Studios yet to go into development in highly anticipated films is, of course, Captain Marvel, which will essentially be their first female-led movie. And it has found its directors. Marvel has hired Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck to direct the film. The duo recently directed a drama called Mississippi Grind with Ryan Reynolds and Ben Mendelsohn, and they have directed other films like Sugar, Half Nelson, and It's Kind of a Funny Story, which is actually one of my favorite films of theirs. They've also worked on TV shows, kind of ironically all for Showtime. They've worked on The Affair, The Big C, and Billions. So Variety broke the news that Marvel wanted to make sure the script was in top shape, that it was done, that it was great before they signed on a director, or in this case, directors. And even then, the search for the directors was a long and thorough one. We talked about the short list that came out, and they were all pretty much female directors. So they do note, Variety, since they broke this news, that Marvel met with the duo multiple times and were impressed with their vision of the character and what they can do. And of course, Marvel has a knack for finding great talent and directors, so I'm pretty sure Marvel's in safe hands with these two in Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. The film does have a script by Meg LaFour, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She wrote Pixar's Inside Out, and Nicole Perlman, who had a hand in writing the first Guardians of the Galaxy film. And of course, will star Brie Larson as the main character, Captain Marvel, aka Carol Danvers. She's an Air Force pilot whose DNA is fused with alien DNA after an accident, and the result gives her these tremendous superpowers. The film will start filming in February. That's confirmed by Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel Studios. We'll just talk about it in just a second. And Captain Marvel will open on March 8th of 2019. Again, I've seen a few episodes they directed for Billions. I thought they were very well handled episodes, and it's kind of a funny story. Is one of my favorite films there. I didn't even know they directed that film. But I remember really liking that movie, and I've heard nothing but great things about Full Nelson, or Half Nelson, I should say. I've been wanting to watch that for a while. I just haven't had a chance. But all their movies have been very critically praised. So, like I said, Marvel has a knack for finding great talent, and I'm sure it's in good hands. So let's move on to the man I just mentioned, Kevin Feige. He says the Post-Avengers 4 will not include a Phase 4, and it could be something new. And he also confirms that that movie, Avengers 4, will be filming a little later than expected. So Marvel Studios arguably has revolutionized the way studios look at franchises. Marvel has created cinematic shared universes, which, we know, if you listen to this podcast or just read the news, well, the movie news anyway, that studios have been trying to copy that and have either failed or just done okay. And, we know that Phase 1 ended with the first Avengers film, and now Phase 3 is going to end with Avengers 4. So you can't really blame anyone by saying that, oh, well, the next movie after Avengers 4 is going to be the movie that starts Phase 4. Well, Kevin Feige just changed all that. Speaking with Collider, Feige reinforced the idea that we know that some contracts are ending for a lot of people, and that Avengers Infinity War and Avengers 4 is a culmination of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. And after Avengers 4, there is some uncertainty about the future. And this is what Kevin Feige said, saying, quote, "It really does right now..." Let me start that over. So it really does right now all start with where we want to take the story. Certainly as we get to Infinity War, there is a sense of climax, if not a conclusion to, by the time we are at Untitled Avengers 4, the 22 movies that we have encompassed in the first 3 phases of the MCU, and what happens after that will be very different. I don't know if it will be Phase 4. It might be a new thing. Feige also went on to mention that Marvel and Co. are working on the films they have in front of them and that are completed, like the next 2 Avengers movies, the already previously mentioned Captain Marvel, Spider-Man Homecoming 2, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But they are not looking too far into the future, which honestly is kind of a great idea because you don't want to stretch yourself too thin, right? DC Extended Universe? I haven't bashed on you guys for a while because you haven't given me a reason, but I haven't forgotten about you. Anyway, Feige then go on, so this is what happens when I talk about the DC Extended Universe. He did go on to admit that after Avengers 4, the MCU will look quite radically different, but of course didn't go into detail, because why would he? And that Avengers 4 will be filmed at a different time. The original plan for Avengers 4 was to be filmed together with Avengers Infinity War, but he admitted that it was, quote, became too complicated to cross-board them like that, and we found ourselves again something would always pay the price. We wanted to be able to focus and shoot one movie, and then focus and then shoot another movie. So Avengers 4 will now be shooting in August, with Avengers Infinity War wrapping up filming in either June or July. So they'll have a nice little period of rest where they can go off and film another movie, or just wait around for Avengers 4 to start filming. So there you go. I mean, the whole, Phase 4 thing maybe being something different is kind of interesting. This is, we never really, we just assumed, like I mentioned, we just assumed that after Avengers 4, we were just going to jump right into Phase 4, which now doesn't seem the case. Or maybe Kevin Feige is like, I just want to mess with you guys a little bit. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, this is interesting. Marvel hasn't really announced any new movies. We just know the movies that are coming out. Was it like a year ago or 2 years ago? Everyone was like surprised that Marvel wasn't at Comic-Con, but they didn't need to be at Comic-Con because they had released their full schedule up until Avengers Infinity War, which I think comes out like in 2019 or something like that. So there was no reason for them to come out and be like, hey, this is our lineup, because you guys already know our lineup, and there was nothing being filmed, or nothing really, substantial to probably show. So, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how to take this. I think it's a good move for them to kind of slow down and just focus on what they have in front of them at the moment and what they are still developing. Like the movies I just mentioned, Captain Marvel and Spider-Man Homecoming 2 and everything else. So we'll find out. Obviously, we'll find out. We'll see what happens, and let's just enjoy what we have and be happy with it. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I think that sounds like a good idea. All right, let's move on to some more movie news. We'll stick with comic book movies, but we'll move on to DC. Joss Whedon says an unknown actress could end up playing Batgirl. When the news broke out that Joss Whedon was going to direct and write and produce a Batgirl movie for the DC Extended Universe, everyone rightfully kind of freaked out in the best way possible. They thought, this is awesome, this is great. Since then, people have been coming out with dream casting. Emma Stone and Jane Levi are kind of like the top ones that I've been seeing a lot lately. I think, what was another one? There was another name, the big name. Can't remember who it was. But those are the names that Emma Stone is like the common one, and Jane Levi is another one that's been thrown out there as well. So he was at the red carpet for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and he spoke to Variety, and they asked him, of course, the question about who would be playing if he's looking for anyone specifically, and he said this. He said, quote, "I doubt it will be a name. I think this is something where you go and find Batgirl and then you cast her. I'm not against movie stars, they're great, but you need somebody who's going to be just right. And in situations like this, the name carried a lot of weight, so it's not as critical." And then, of course, in true Joss Whedon fashion, he joked and said definitely Vin Diesel, but that's a whole other thing in itself. So the fact that maybe Batgirl will be played by an unknown actress or a newcoming actress coming in, breaking into the scene, may not be too bad of an idea. Now, look, would it be cool to see a big name actress that we all know play Batgirl? Yes, of course it would be. But considering that we've never actually seen Batgirl on the big screen, and considering that this is a character that maybe not a lot of people know about, the fact that they could bring in someone who is an unknown could be pretty cool, because let's face it, I mean, you don't necessarily always need a big name for a character like this. No one knew who Henry Cavill was before he played Superman, unless you watched The Tudors on HBO or Showtime, whatever channel that was on. No one knew that. No one knew who he was. Christian Bale wasn't the Christian Bale that we all know now. I mean, people knew who he was, but he wasn't like the big, like everyone knew who Christian Bale was. Everyone pretty much knows who Emma Stone is. Everyone kind of knows who Jane Levi is, or whoever. Those two names stick out because those are the two names that I've seen kind of on every casting list. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not against the idea of an unknown coming in. I think that'd be kind of cool. And you don't necessarily need a big name like Batgirl. If you put Batgirl on a poster, and then below it you say written, directed, produced by Joss Whedon, that might be enough to get fans in. So that's all you need, and that's pretty cool. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. It's Joss Whedon. Even if he does find an unknown actress or a newcoming actress that has done small things here and there, that's fine. I mean, he's not gonna. He's taking his time. Everything's still in the early stages. So whoever he finds, whether it's a big name actress, an actress that some of us know, or an actress that no one knows, I think it's in good hands, and I think he's gonna make the right decision along with everyone else to bring in whoever this lucky lady is. So we'll just wait and see. Let's move on to the next news item. Speaking of casting, some updates. Will Smith is in talks to play Genie in Disney's live-action Aladdin movie. One of the biggest hurdles that Disney's live-action Aladdin movie is going to have is, of course, trying to find someone to fill the shoes of Robin Williams' Genie from the Aladdin movie. However, it looks like Disney is searching for a big name to do that, because reports say that, again, Will Smith is currently in early negotiations to play Genie in the film that would be directed by Guy Ritchie. It's pretty interesting that Disney is going with a name like Smith. Now, they've tried to get Smith to do another live-action movie. They tried to get him to do Dumbo, and he dropped out because I guess the deals kind of just broke down, and that was it. So they reached out to him again and to do this, and maybe he's more well fitted to do Genie. I mean, he obviously has the charisma for it. It's a live action movie, so we don't know how we don't know if they're gonna keep Genie like the same character, so we're just gonna voice the character, maybe do a little mocap, who knows. or maybe it's gonna be like the full on. Just it's gonna be Will Smith coming out and being part of the fun. We don't know. The movie's still being in development. There is a current plan to start filming this summer. So if that's the case, we're going to be hearing a lot of Aladdin soon. Guy Ritchie is he's not currently promoting, but he will be soon promoting his King Arthur Legend of the Sword movie coming out. And I believe that after he's done filming that's kind of when Disney wants to start rolling on Aladdin. When it comes to the lead roles, there's an open casting call at the moment to try to find the leads in Aladdin and Jasmine. So we can assume that, of course, those characters will be unknowns / newcomers, and they'll probably be filling the movie with big names in the supporting roles, like Will Smith as Genie. So I don't know. I mean, obviously you want to try to have and do your own thing with Genie, because no one is going to come close or touch Robin Williams as Genie. Or as the Genie from Aladdin. No one's going to come close to it. No one's going to touch it. No one's going to be able to replicate it or do whatever other adjective or verb you want to put in front of it. Will Smith coming in to play Genie, that's kind of interesting. Again, he has the charisma to do it. But we don't know how this is. I mean, and again, this is Guy Ritchie directing Aladdin. Guy Ritchie has a very specific style. If you've seen some of the TV ads for King Arthur Legend of the Sword or seen the trailers, you know what that style, or just seen any other Guy Ritchie movies, you know what that style is. So it kind of be interesting to kind of see where this plays out and how Will Smith will come into it. Again, he's only in talks. He hasn't officially taken the role yet. So let's just calm down a little bit on some of the hate, if there is any hate. Who knows? Aladdin currently doesn't have a release date, but we'll obviously keep you guys updated as much as I can on that. Alright, so let's move on to the last two news items, at least at the time of this recording, and both of them have to do with Fate of the Furious and the future of the Fast and the Furious films. So one of the big things that going into Fate and the Furious, besides, how they're going to handle the franchise now that, unfortunately, Paul Walker is no longer with us, is the beef between Vin Diesel and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And it looked like it now has been revealed what exactly their beef was about. We didn't know what their problems were. There was reports saying that Johnson was not a fan of how Vin Diesel treated the set. He showed up late. He delayed filming. Even though his trailer was very close to the set, he still didn't come out like for hours or whatever. So it always felt like Vin Diesel was being unprofessional. At least that's kind of how the stories were coming out. And no one would have known about this if it wasn't for The Rock going on Instagram calling some of his cast members candy asses. So, I mean, there was that. So, I mean, and it was very apparent that these two had a beef because Universal Pictures kept them away from each other during promoting in the film. They were nowhere near each other at all. So there was that. So, and there was even a report that came out. I think it was during this week that Diesel, because he was also a producer on the film, so he does have some power. That Diesel apparently may have axed a potential post-credit scene between Johnson and Statham. Maybe we don't know. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So anyway, now there's been a little bit more news coming out from this little beef of theirs, because some outlets are saying that the reason for their little spat was because of real estate. And no, I'm not talking about bigger trailers or where their trailer was or anything like that. Real estate is apparently a term used in Hollywood for how much screen time an actor gets in a movie. And it usually includes, and I'm not kidding, this is the wording they use, this is the wording that was used in a lot of outlets that I read this, quote, who gets the best action scenes, who gets the hottest girls, who shows off their body more, and who gets more face time. So that was the reason why the two butted heads, apparently. And at the end of it, it was Johnson who gave Diesel the real estate, since it is, for all intent and purposes, and for argument's sake, it is Diesel's franchise. He's been with the franchise longer than The Rock, and is pretty much as long as anyone else. And when The Rock came in at the end, of the day, or at the end of the day, not when The Rock came in, at the end of the day, it is Diesel. Just Diesel. Why not Diesel? Diesel is front and center, and the face of the franchise, because it is his franchise, and he's the one that pretty much brought it back to life after it was maybe could have been dead after Tokyo Drift. So now the two have apparently squashed their beef. They've been having multiple meetings with each other, and they've squashed it, and now they can go back to business as before. Because Fast and Furious 9 currently has a release date for April 9th, 2019, which means they'll probably start filming next year, or they will start filming next year. They had to start filming next year. And Fast and Furious 10 has an April 2nd, 2021 release. Because yes, the franchise will do all 10 movies and will potentially end at number 10. At least this little current section they have going on. Let's face it, if there ever was a real fight between Vin Diesel and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, we all know who's going to win that fight. By a mile, we all know who's going to win that fight. And if we don't know who's going to win that fight, it's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Because I think he could actually probably eat Vin Diesel at that point. I think that's going to happen. That is what would happen. So let's move on to the last news item of the day, which connects to the Fast and Furious movies and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, because Universal Pictures is developing a Fast and the Furious spin-off, finally, with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Jason Statham. If you've seen The Fate of the Furious, you know that the chemistry between Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Jason Statham was on a whole new level, and those two were arguably the best part of the film. And now it looks like Universal is finally moving forward with a spin-off film to the franchise, as Deadline reports that Universal Pictures is developing a spin-off film with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Agent Hobbs and Jason Statham's Deckard Shaw. Chris Morgan, who has produced and written the film since Tokyo Drift, and has been called the architect of the franchise, will write the script, with the idea being that Hobbs has to form an unlikely alliance with Shaw. Everything's still pretty much in the early stages, so we don't know if the film will take place in between movies or if it will be after Fast and Furious 10. Either way, this is pretty awesome news and something I'm really looking forward to. Now, there was talks about doing a Hobbs spin-off film years ago. I think it was after Fast 5 came out, when the character kind of just took off and everyone loved him, and why not? It's The Rock. There was talks about doing a spin-off film with him. But it never happened, because The Rock was busy filming back-to-back movies, and although nothing's really changed because he's still doing the same thing, although now he fits time to do his TV show, Ballers, and run his production company. Now adding Jason Statham's Deckard Shaw into the mix could be interesting, because again, those two were really awesome together in The Fate of the Furious. They have great chemistry together. I can't believe they haven't done a movie together at all, and now they have a chance to do it with these characters, and I think it's pretty damn cool. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we hear something a lot sooner rather than later. This is something I can really get behind, and I know a lot of people are like, hardcore fans of the franchise are like, already like just raging over the fact that Deckard Shaw can now be part of this little of the family, considering what he did. But Chris Morgan has said that there's a lot more to his character than what we originally saw. So it should be interesting kind of see how that plays out in the future films. We'll see. But as for this news, I'm totally on board. I love it. I love Johnson as Hobbs, and I'm a huge fan of Jason Statham in general. So, and a huge fan of both of them in general. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Alright, so that's all the news items, at least at the time of this recording. Obviously, if anything big drops, we'll talk about it next week on the podcast, or you can just go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/moviepit, and of course that will be linked down below in the description/show notes area. So let's move on to this week's releases. We have quite a few releases on the limited release and wide release front. So let's just get right to it. There is going to be an expansion release for The Lost City of Z with Charlie Hunnam, Robert Pattinson, and Tom Holland. It's based off a true story and also based off a book of the same name. If you want to go check that out, it's getting an expansion release. Let's move on to this week's limited/wide releases. All these movies are like, some of these movies are getting, quote, wide releases, but they're getting released like in 1,000 theaters, or a little bit over 1,000 theaters. So just be aware of what your theater is showing this weekend. As always, be aware of that, especially with the limited releases. So let's talk about one of them right now. Well, we'll talk about all of them, but let's just start. I don't know what's wrong with me today, guys. There's always something wrong with me. Have you guys noticed that? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm going crazy. Let's talk about the limited releases. One of them is Born in China. It is the Disney. Of course, as you guys know, Disney releases every year a movie that's connected to Earth Day, and this is their film. Venturing into the wilds of China, the film captures intimate moments with a panda bear and her growing cub, a young golden monkey who feels displaced by his baby sister, and a mother snow leopard struggling to raise her 2 cubs. So there's that. The next film is Phoenix Forgotten. 20 years after 3 teenagers disappear in the wake of a mysterious lights appearing above Phoenix, Arizona, unseen footage from the night has been discovered, chronicling the final hours of their fateful expedition. Yes, this is a found footage movie, and if you have no idea what this movie is about or have never seen the trailer for it, you are not alone. I had all intention to watch the trailer before I started this podcast, and I didn't do it. You want to know why? Because I didn't know this movie existed until a month ago. No one knew this movie existed until a month ago, and it's getting a big theater count for some reason. I don't know. I mean, this is it sounds interesting, but at the same time, it's like, you're just like releasing a movie like in a month, and no one knows what it's about. I did not see trailers for it. There's trailers online for it. Just haven't watched it. I don't know. Alright, so let's move on to the other releases this week. The Promise. Set during the last days of the Ottoman Empire, the film follows a love triangle between Michael, played by Oscar Isaac, a brilliant medical student, the beautiful and sophisticated Anna, played by Charlotte Le Bon, and Chris, played by Christian Bale, a renowned American journalist based in Paris. The film is getting some pretty decent reviews. Looks okay. I mean, doesn't look that bad, and got Oscar Isaac in there. You got Christian Bale in there. I mean, why not? The next film is Unforgettable. A woman, played by Katherine Heigl, sets out to make life hell for ex-husband's new wife, played by Rosario Dawson. I have literally no interest in this movie. None. I have seen the trailer in theaters, I think maybe like 4 or 5 times now. Yes, I've seen the trailer that many times. And every time I watch it, it gets less interesting. This movie is not targeted toward me, so I'm not being like a Debbie Downer. I'm not being like, oh, this movie sucks. No, I have no intention of watching this movie. It's not targeted toward me, and every time I see a trailer for it, I just feel like I have to look away, because it's just like you're first of all, it feels like they're giving everything away, and second of all, it just you're really gonna sell this movie on a crazy Katherine Heigl, who no one really likes anymore? Maybe just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm becoming that bitter old man. I don't know. And lastly, the movie I'm actually looking forward toward this weekend, Free Fire. Set in Boston in 1978, a meeting in a deserted warehouse between 2 gangs turns into a shootout and a game of survival. The film has a pretty impressive cast. You got Brie Larson, you got Armie Hammer, you got Michael Smiley in there, which is a great British actor. If you don't know who he is, I highly recommend you go search him out. Cillian Murphy, or Cillian Murphy, however you want to pronounce his name, in there. Jack Reynard's in there, and Charlotte Copley is also in the film. This film has a really impressive cast, and the fact that there hasn't been a ton of promotion, there's been some promotion. I've seen some trailers for it on TV, or TV ads on TV. But this looks really cool. It's gotten a pretty positive reaction everywhere else. I'm really looking forward to it. This is a movie that I've been looking forward toward for a while. When I first saw the trailer, I think it was like last year. Was it last year? I think it was last year or earlier this year. I saw the trailer for the first time, and this one instantly just jumped to my must-watch list because it looks so cool. I'm looking forward to it. So this is the movie I'm looking forward to the most. So, once again, your releases this week. Again, they all have weird theater counts, so just be aware of that. Free Fire, Unforgettable, The Promise, Phoenix Forgotten, and Born in China. And your expansion release this week is The Lost City of Z. Let's move on to this week's box office predictions. My picks last week turned out to be the actual box office. Hey, what do you know about that? I've done it once again. I really should keep a tally of how many times I'm actually right. But the actual box office / my picks from last week were The Fate of the Furious, The Boss Baby, Beauty and the Beast, Smurfs: The Lost Village, and Going in Style. So if you want to play along, all you gotta do is predict the top 5 movies of the box office. And my picks this week, I think Fast and the Furious is going to repeat again, obviously. Because it's The Fate of the Furious, or The Fate of the Furious. Stupid title still. But The Fate of the Furious, if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. It's not as great. I did a little mini review last week, but just in case you didn't want to hear it again, or didn't listen to the podcast last week, it's not as good as the last 3 Fast and Furious movies. It's not. It's not a bad movie. I don't know. It just wasn't all that great. I felt like it feels like they were trying to readjust, and Chris Morgan has said that this is going to be a start of a new trilogy. Obviously 8, 9, and 10, but I don't know. It wasn't all that great. It was kind of a step down from the last 3 movies. Put it that way. So my picks this week: Fate of the Furious at number 1, The Boss Baby will stay at number 2 since it's really the only kids movie that's coming out, and everyone's saying it's been surprisingly been taking a lot of money at the box office. Number 3 will be Beauty and the Beast, and number 4 and 5 are going to be where the new movies come in. I think Unforgettable will be number 4. Again, not targeted toward me, but there is a huge audience for this kind of movie, for these kind of movies. So Unforgettable at number 4, and at number 5, I think maybe Born in China, because you can't go wrong with cute little animals. You can't. I mean, I've seen the trailers, and there's little baby animals, and that's enough to get people in theaters. It is. And usually these Disney Earth Day movies tend to do pretty. I mean, they don't do a tremendous amount of money at the box office, but they do make a pretty good, healthy gathering for these films, for the box office intake. So if it's not Born in China, I think maybe The Promise, just because it's getting a lot of TV time. With that, I selfishly I would say Free Fire because I want people to go watch that movie. But I think even I would know. I'd be lying to myself if I said that. Although it'd be really cool if it was number 5, or at least in the top 5. But my picks this week: The Fate of the Furious, The Boss Baby, Beauty and the Beast, Unforgettable, and a toss-up between The Promise and Born in China. So thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. You guys are great. I am still trying to gather some people up for a summer movie season preview podcast. We did it last year and it was a lot of fun. I'm trying to do it again this year, and hopefully people will sign up for it. If you guys will definitely know by next week if there is one, not because it will be posted, but because obviously I will be doing at least one more podcast before the summer movie previews podcast if we end up doing it. And I don't want to do it by myself because you guys already hear enough of my own voice. You don't want to hear like a 2-hour podcast or like an hour and a half podcast. It wasn't 2 hours. It was like an hour and a half, at least last year. So, yeah, we're trying to be doing that. Obviously, I'll let you guys know if that happens next week. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening again to the podcast this week. You guys have been great. Let me know what you guys thought of the news items this week. Obviously, again, if anything big drops, it will be posted. We'll talk about it next week in the podcast, or it will be posted on the Facebook page. Again, you can find a link to the Facebook page down below in the description /show notes area. Facebook.com/moviepit. That's Facebook.com/moviepit. You can also, while you're down there, go click the link to my WordPress account. There will be a review up there. If you haven't read my review for Fate of the Furious, you're more than welcome to go check that out. There will also be a review of Free Fire this weekend as well. Kind you guys go check that out. That is movieswithchris.wordpress.com, movieswithchris.wordpress.com. Also, right down there, if you want to go follow me on Twitter or Instagram, link down, my screen name is down there, where you guys can find me, or you can just go to Twitter or Facebook and type in at Chris Renteria 27, and that will be right there for you guys. Why did my voice get deeper all of a sudden? So why? I don't know. I'm weird. You guys should know that by now. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. You guys have been great. And also while you're down there, go check out the links to the trailers this week as well. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Yeah, happy Earth Day, I guess. I think it's, what is it, Sunday? I think it's Sunday, so happy Earth Day. Or tomorrow. No, it's tomorrow, isn't it? I think it's tomorrow. It's 22nd. I think it might be tomorrow. So don't forget tomorrow's Earth Day.
Don't forget tomorrow's Earth Day.
So guys, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. Hopefully you guys will come back next week. I look forward to doing more podcasts with you guys. The podcast will be going through a little bit of, not a change, but there will be definitely more podcasts in the future soon. I will tease you guys on that on a later podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. One more time, just take another shot. It's a nice little drinking game you can possibly play. How many times do I thank you at the end of the podcast? Don't do that. That might be bad for your health. So yeah, have a good weekend, guys. Have a safe. I stopped myself from saying it again. Have a good weekend. Be safe. Have fun. And as always, go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!